welcome grade 11 accounting students. It's so good to be back and help you guys learn a bit more in terms of accounting. Right, in today's lesson, guys, the focus is on clubs. Now, before you get too excited and you think, are we going to talk about nightclubs? No, we definitely not. Our focus is on non-profit organizations such as clubs. So it could be in your community, the local tennis club, the local soccer club, or the cricket club. So those are the types of clubs we're going to focus on. Okay, so I'm sure you've got your calculators in front of you. You've got some stationery on hand. So let's get started. Right, now before we start with ledgers, let's quickly go through some basic concepts that you may already be familiar with. So the first thing that we're going to focus on are the differences between a non-profit organization, such as a sports club, and a business. For example, a business such as maybe spa. Now remember, guys, your non-profit organization is there obviously because there's a need for a particular sport or recreation in the community, whereas a business has a completely different, it serves a completely different requirement. So let's look at some of the key difference. The main purpose of a trading or service business is to make a profit. We all know this. In the case of a sports club or other non-profit organizations, remember a sports club is only an example, so let's just read that one more time. In the case of a sports club or other non-profit organizations, the main purpose is to render a service. Okay, so the business wants to make a profit. That's the purpose of opening up a business. Whereas a club, on the other hand, the purpose is to render a service to the community. Unlike a business, there is no owner or owners, thus there is no capital contribution. Now, as accounting students, you know that if you open up a business, obviously, there needs to be some kind of contribution from the owner in the form of capital. And obviously, that capital is then used to start up the business, to buy equipment for the business, and so on. Now, when it comes to a non-profit organization, there's no owner. So immediately, where do the funds come from? Because there's no capital contribution. The money to run the club usually comes from the members, donations, and sponsors. So think about your local soccer club as an example. Where does the funds come from? Obviously, if you want to join the club, if you want to become a member, often you have to pay fees to join the club. So one form of income comes from the fees that the members have to pay. Then funds could also come from donations. So for example, someone who wants to start a club may go to businesses and obtain donations for them to start that club. Sponsors as well. You may find that a lot of businesses like to sponsor certain community activities, and why not help by sponsoring towards equipment for a sports club. It is therefore vital that proper records are kept of how the money was spent. Okay, extremely important. Remember, accounting is all about keeping financial records of receiving income or receiving money and how you spend that money. So it is absolutely important, even though a sports club is not a business, it's not there to make a profit, it's extremely vital that proper records are kept in terms of whatever the club receives and how they go about spending that money. Because remember, a lot of these funds come from the public, and the public wants to know how these funds are spent. Okay. Right, let's move on. Okay, now there's obviously a lot more in terms of clubs that we could talk about. often you get a chairman, you get a secretary, you have a treasurer, and these are notes that you will find in your textbook, and I expect you guys to go through that. My focus today is obviously on clubs' ledger accounts. So let's look at some unique transactions that affects clubs. Right, the first unique account that we're going to come across is your membership fees. So let's read through this first and then we'll look through the account itself. This is the club's main source of income. The money received from members for membership fees are receipts. Okay, so think about your definition of what is a receipt. When the business receives money, we classify that as a receipt. Similarly, when the club receives membership fees, it's considered to be a receipt, the actual amount that is received by the club. The part of the membership fees that applies to the current financial year is an income. So immediately, we're now talking about GARP, and more specifically, the matching principle. So anything relating to a specific financial year, okay, so anything relating to a financial year is regarded as an income. Okay, so I want you guys to bear that in mind when we do an exercise later on. It often happens that members do not pay their fees. So it could be membership fees are paid annually, membership fees are paid monthly, and we will come across certain members who do not pay their fees. Sounds familiar, isn't it? Debtors who sometimes don't pay their accounts. So now we're coming across members that do not pay their fees. This is regarded as a loss and must be written off as membership fees written off. Okay, so just as we sometimes write off debts that a debtor owes the business and has not paid, we are going to come across scenarios where a member, for some reason, has not paid his membership fees. Maybe he doesn't want to belong to the club anymore, and as a result, we now need to write off his membership fees. Right, so membership fees, what can we conclude in terms of this account? It's obviously going to be owner's equity because it is an income and impacts on profit. With me? Membership fees written off, also owner's equity, but this has to be an expense because it's obviously a loss for the business. Okay, right, let's look at the next unique account. Entrance fees. Okay, right, now immediately, guys, the word entrance fees is obviously now applied to new members. New members that want to join the club will end up paying entrance fees. So this is a once-off payment made by new members who join the club. It is treated as an income or can be capitalized. We're not going to come across capitalized or capitalization of entrance fees in this lesson, but hopefully if we do a revision lesson later on during the term, we will look at this concept. But for now, entrance fees, owner's equity, and we will also regard this as an income for the club. Okay, right, let's move on. Affiliation fees. This is the money the club has to pay to the body or an organization who is responsible for organizing tournaments, etc. This is an expense for the business. Now remember, guys, a sports club does not or cannot run in isolation. They obviously want to compete with other clubs, they want to play matches, they want to host matches, etc. So often a sporting, let's take an example such as soccer. So you could have different clubs in Gauteng, but Gauteng itself would be the body or the organization that arranges these various tournaments. So in order to be part of, let's assume, the Gauteng Soccer Federation, your sports club needs to pay what we call an affiliation fee to be associated with that body. So what is important for you to remember, it is also owner's equity, but this is an expense for the business. Okay, right, the next unique transaction that you guys are going to come across will be functions, sometimes tournaments. All receipts from hosting a function are recorded on the credit side of the account. All payments for hosting a function are recorded on the debit side of the account. Okay, so sounds confusing, but it actually isn't. So let's take an example of the sports club wants to raise additional funds, so they decide, let's host a tournament in order for us to come up with funds or additional funds for our club. So when you arrange a tournament, remember, you're going to be receiving money. Okay, so that's going to go on the credit side, and there will be certain payments or certain expenses that would be incurred. So for example, let's assume you have a tournament. You'll then have to obviously buy certain items for that tournament itself. So you're going to come across payments. Okay, so receipts on the credit side and payments on the debit side. These accounts will also be owner's equity. But what's the purpose of this account? The purpose will be, we then calculate whether we made a profit, in other words, an income, or a loss, an expense on the particular function. Okay, so for example, from hosting the tournament, we obviously charge people for participating. And let's assume we collected in total an amount of 1,000 Rand. But our expenses for hosting the tournament was 700 Rand. So as accounting students, we know that this account, the purpose of this account is to work out whether we made a profit or a loss on this particular function. So in this case, we can clearly see we've made a profit of 300 Rand. Okay, and that profit is considered an income for the business. Right. So talking about functions, let's now go to the next page, which will be our first activity. Okay, so what I want to do, guys, maybe a bit too soon to take a break, but I think let's take a quick break. And when you guys come back, we will look at this activity. Want to take a break now? So you think about these concepts, and then we will look at the activity given. Okay, so see you now. Welcome back, grade 11s. Right, time for us to look at our first activity for the lesson. So let's get started. David's Soccer Club hosted a dinner and dance to raise funds to purchase new equipment. The business sold tickets at 120 Rand each. The club sold 150 tickets in total. The following payments were made for the function. So we had the first cost being food cost, 65 Rand per person, or in this case, we can also say per ticket, and the hiring of the sound system and the DJ costed 3,400 Rand. Okay, so you've got a soccer club, they want to raise funds because they want to buy new equipment, and they are hosting a function in order to raise funds for the equipment. Right, I'm going to ask you guys now to complete the following account to calculate whether the club made a profit or a loss on this function. So the account that I want you guys to complete, okay, is a functions account. Now, before I allow you to look at the information, I want to quickly remind you guys, when we talk function, you could also call this account function or you could call it dinner and dance, which is the name of the function. So you'll find the names of the accounts all depends on the event that you're hosting. Okay, it's not like where we've got in a business, we've got sales, we've got cost of sales. In this case, it's going to obviously match the type of club we have, or in this case, the type of function that we have. So before you get started, I want to remind you this account is owner's equity, and the purpose of this account, have we made a profit or have we made a loss? So I'm going to give you guys now 3 minutes to complete this account. Okay, your time starts now. Okay, right guys, let's look at whether the the club made a profit or loss from hosting this dinner and dance function. Okay, now let's look at our account. So remember guys, whatever the club received is going to go on the credit side of this account. That's obviously regarded as a receipt. You're receiving money, and whatever payments were made will be recorded on the debit side. Now remember guys, unlike your business, there's no CRJ and CPJ. The club normally has a cash book where they record in that cash book all their receipts and all their payment, not on a monthly basis, but as the transactions occur. So you will find, although your textbooks probably, there are a few examples where you may look at the cash books of a club, what is often tested in the exam are the ledger accounts. I'm not focusing on the cash book. Right, so going back to the example, your receipts will obviously be the sale of tickets. So in this case, we've sold, okay, so we've sold 150 tickets at a price of 120 Rand. So let's get the calculator out and let's calculate our total receipts. So 150 tickets times 120 Rand. So the receipt amounts to 18,000. So let's fill that in. So under receipts, okay, we've received 18,000 with me. Right, now let's look at payments that were made. The following payments were made for the function. Your food cost 65 Rand per person or per ticket. The hiring of the sound system and the DJ 3,400. So let's go to the food costs first. So we've got 65 Rand, okay, per ticket, and we've sold 150 tickets. So for the food, our payment was a total of 65 times 150. Okay, so a total of 9,750. So let's fill that in, 9,750. And then the sound system and the DJ was a further 3,400. So let's add those amounts up together and record that as our payments. Okay, so plus another 3,400. Okay, and that would give us 13,150. So let's fill that in, 13,150. Now, if you're thinking about the contra account, which I'm sure you are, because in accounting there's always two accounts affected, the contra account is obviously bank. Okay, contra account is bank because it was a payment. Okay, here it was a receipt. Right, so in this case, let's now look at whether the business made a profit or a loss. Now remember guys, in accounting, we obviously need to do this properly. So I'm going to start with the credit side. On the credit side, I'm getting a total of 18,000. And I'm going to transfer this total to the debit side, 18,000. So we've obviously made a profit on this function or on this dance. Okay, and let's get the calculator out. So our profit would be an amount of, okay, so let's just clear that. So 18,000 is what we received minus 13,150, and we've made a profit of 4,850. Okay, now remember guys, I am debiting functions with 4,850, which means I would then have to credit. Okay, let's just draw another T account here. Okay, so I would credit an income account called profit on dance. Okay, or you could say profit on function, profit on dinner and dance, doesn't really matter. So profit on dance, owner's equity, it is an income. So I'm going to credit this account with 4,850. Okay, and the contra account would have been functions. Okay, right, so we've done, or we've looked at the first exercise, quite a simple, quite a straightforward exercise. Let's now move on to something a bit more challenging. So the next activity, we are provided with the following information. The financial year of Boris Tennis Club ends on the 31st of December. The annual membership fee, so they've got an annual membership fee, amounts to 180 Rand per member. Okay, right, then we are told on the 1st of January 2015, so at the top I'm going to write down, this is obviously now the beginning of the financial year. The club had 13 members who had not yet paid their membership fees for 2014, while 9 members had already paid their fees for 2015. So they're giving us a bit of information in terms of the previous financial year. So in the previous financial year, which was 2014, we had 13 members who had not yet paid their club fees. And we also had, in the previous year, 9 members who had already paid their fees for 2015. Right, next bit of information. During the year, the club received membership fees to the amount of 16,200. So in other words, during the year is referring to 2015. So during 2015, in total, the club received 16,200. These membership fees included arrear membership fees for 2014. Arrear means that was outstanding from 10 members, and membership fees in advance for 2016 from 7 members. Okay, right, next bit of information. At the end of 2015, management decided to write off membership fees still outstanding for 2014, and then we are told 4 members still owe their membership fees for 2015. Okay, now a lot happening, guys, but please remember that all of this information, you've got to now break it down into years. So what I'm going to do on the side, 2014 is obviously my previous year. 2015 is the year I'm working for. Okay, let's go back to the black. And 2016 is the following year. Now, in accounting, whenever we're drawing up ledger accounts, and if they ask us to complete an account for an entire financial year, please remember that you obviously taking into account GAAP, your matching principle. Okay, everything relating to a specific time period needs to be shown in that account. Okay, right, so let's look at what is required. So the activity wants us to complete the following accounts properly balanced and closed off on the 31st of December 2015. Income received in advance, accrued income, membership fees, and membership fees written off. Okay, so let's get started. Right, we've got income received in advance. So immediately, this is a liability, okay, minus plus. And remember, income received in advance normally has an opening balance at the beginning of the year. Next account, accrued income, an asset, okay, plus minus, and there's often also an opening balance for accrued income, which we're going to get to in a moment. Okay, our third account is our membership fees, owner's equity, and this account is an income for the business. I'm just going to include that. Okay, and then finally, membership fees written off, owner's equity, and this is an expense for the business. Okay, right, so let's go back to our exercise and let's look at the first bit of information. On the 1st of January 2015, the club had 13 members who had not yet paid their membership fees for 2014. So in other words, this is obviously my accrued income opening balance at the beginning of the year. So let's get our calculator out. Okay, let's clear that. All right, so we've got 13 members who had not paid their membership fees. Remember, membership fees amounts to 180 Rand. So if I multiply that by 180, my opening balance is 2,340. So let's take that through. Okay. Right, so accrued income, 2,340 is my opening balance, what was outstanding last year. So my balance brought down on the 1st of January 2015. Okay, right, let's bring the opening balance down for the next account and then we'll look at taking another break. So income received in advance. So if I go back to my information, okay, on the 1st of January, we already know 13 members had not yet paid their membership fees for 2014, while 9 members had already paid their fees for 2015. So again, let's get the calculator out. So we've got 9 members, so 9 times 180. So we've got 1,620 being income received in advance. So let's fill that in. Okay, so income received in advance, it's 1,000. Let's just get that out. So it's 1,620. So 1,620, and this is my balance brought down again at the beginning of the financial year, 1st of January 2015. Okay, all right, I think let's take another ad break, and when we come back, we'll then look at what happens to these opening balances. See you guys in a bit. Welcome back, grade 11s. Thus far, we've brought down some opening balances for income received in advance for membership fees, and then also an opening balance for accrued income. Now, in terms of what you learned towards the end of grade 10, income received in advance, accrued income, obviously results because of the matching principle. You try and match all income and expenses in the correct financial period that they belong to. So at the beginning of the financial year, once again, because of that matching principle, because remember, you're now looking at a new financial year, we've got to reverse income received in advance and accrued income. So the entries that we made in the previous financial year, we're now reversing these entries. So what do we mean by reversals? You know this because you've done this in grade 10. It's just a recap. It simply means I am now sending 1,620 back to membership fees account. So how do I do that in accounting? If I've got a credit balance, when I reverse this amount, I'm now going to debit income received in advance with 1,620 by means of a general journal entry, and I'm now sending this off to membership. Okay, so membership fees. I'm going to abbreviate membership fees from now onwards, but you guys obviously need to write this out in full or use appropriate abbreviations if the teacher allows you to. And this happens at the beginning of the financial year, not at the end of the financial year. Okay, so I've debited income received in advance. So at this stage, okay, the 2 lines simply indicates that I can't really balance this account, and I've actually sort of closed off the account. So let's now go to membership fees must be credited with that amount of 1,620. Okay, once again, we would have passed a general journal entry, and this is coming from income received in advance, or some textbooks call this account deferred income, taking place on the 1st of Jan 2015. Okay, right, so sorted income received in advance. I've reversed the entry, so this is now sorted. Let's now go to accrued income. So we're going to do the exact same thing. Accrued income, remember, this relates to last year, what was outstanding from last year. So 2,340 also now needs to be reversed. So again, because I've got a debit balance, I'm now going to credit accrued income with 2,340 by means of a general journal entry. Contra account, I'm once again sending this off to membership fees. Okay, and this is happening on the 1st of Jan 2015. Okay, so that has been transferred. So double lines to indicate that. And then membership fees on the debit side, an amount of 2,340. Okay, general journal, and this came from accrued income. Okay, taking place on the 1st of Jan 2015. And it's all because of that matching principle. Remember, I'm now working for the 2015 financial year. So you're going to see in a moment when we record bank how this sorts out and ensures that I only record, or when I'm showing or calculating my income in terms of membership fees, I'm obviously taking into account transactions for 2015, the financial period that I'm working for. Remember, I said I use the word income. I did not use the word receipt. There's a big difference between the two. Okay, right, first bit of information sorted. Let's go back to that information sheet and let's read further. Okay, next bit of info. During the year, the club received membership fees to the amount of 16,200. So they're telling you the club received membership fees amounting to 16,200. These membership fees includes arrear membership fees for 2014 from 10 members. So immediately, if we look at our previous information that we just dealt with, the previous year, 2014, we had 13 members who had outstanding membership fees. So from that 13, we can see 10 have paid. So clearly, we've got 3 still outstanding. And remember, the 10 that have paid is included in the 16,200. You guys with me? Right. And membership fees received in advance for 2016 from 7 members. So we've got membership fees in advance from 7 members. Just write that down. So this bit of information, if I had to break this down, if I had to break down the 16,200 Rand, let's just write this down for you guys because this is important. So I've got a total of 16,200, but I could break this down as follows. Okay, so I could break it down into 2014, 2015, as well as 2016. Okay, so if I take 2014, I had 10 members who paid. Okay, so let's get the calculator out. So 10 members, and they're paying 180 Rand each. So that would be 1,800. Okay, so that's 1,800. 2016, I received fees from 7 members. I just want to double check and make sure. Yeah, 180. Okay, so 2016, I received fees from 7 members. So again, if I get my calculator out, so I've got 7 times 180 Rand to give me 1,260. Okay, so let's fill that in. So 1,260. So 2015, the fees that I've received, okay, would obviously be the difference. Okay, so let's just move that. Let's get that back. Okay, so the difference, remember I've received a total of 16,200. If I then subtract the 1,800, and then I subtract a further 1,260. So that gives me 13,140. So 13,140 belongs to the 2015 financial year. So this bit of information, why have I broken it down? You're going to see when I record the information. So let's firstly record the information, and then let's look at what we're going to do with this breakdown. Okay, so let's go back to our ledger account. So we received a total of 16,200. So let's record this first. Okay, so we're busy working with membership fees. It is an income. So I've received an amount of 16,000, and I've forgotten the amount already. So let's just go back. So I've received a total of 16,200. Okay, so 16,200, and this figure obviously represents my bank. What I've received would have been recorded in the cash book. Okay, and what I'm going to do down is I'm now going to break this down into the following. So I'm going to write it at the bottom, okay, because often they do give you enough lines where you sometimes can show calculation. So if I break this down, 2014, if I remember correctly, it was 1,800. Okay, 1,800, 2015, 13,140. Okay, so plus 13,140. And then we had 2,000, okay, 13,140. And then we had for the next or the following financial year an amount of, okay, so we recorded this, and then we had 1,260 belonging to the next financial year. So let's fill that in brackets. Okay, 1,260. Okay. Right, now why have I recorded this in brackets? Now remember I spoke about the matching principle. The previous financial year, you had members owing you 2,340. You've now indicated that 1,800 has paid already. So in other words, obviously this figure is now sitting in my bank total, but I've made an entry on the debit side because it belongs to the previous financial year. In other words, when I calculate my income in the end, that figure is so-called removed from my bank total, okay, because of that matching principle. 13,140 belongs to this financial year, so that's not a problem. The 1,260, now remember guys, this belongs to the next financial year, 2016. So immediately that matching principle tells me, take this out. Take out, remove that 1,260. So let's do that first. Let's remove this amount. So I'm now going to debit membership fees with income received in advance, and the amount is 1,260. And remember, this is an entry that's made at the end of the current financial year, so the 31st of December. So I'm now transferring 1,260 to a liability account called income received in advance. It doesn't belong in this financial year. So if I go back to income received in advance, I'm now crediting income received in advance 1,260. Okay, and this came from my membership fees account on the 31st of December 2015. You guys got that? Okay. Right, just remember guys, if there's anything here that you're confused about, you didn't get, you didn't understand, please make sure that you take that down. You make a note of it so that you can ask your teacher at the end of the lesson, or you can ask a friend. Sometimes it actually helps when you ask a friend. They are able to explain it to you, and often we learn from one another. So bear that in mind. Okay, right, so I've sorted out my bank total. Now let's go back to the next transaction that is given to us. So my next transaction, okay, at the end of 2015, management decided to write off membership fees still outstanding for 2014. So in this case, maybe the word management is not appropriate. We can maybe change that to the treasurer. Okay, the guy that handles all the money, or the secretary, or maybe it was a joint decision between the secretary, treasurer, and the chairman. So they decided to write off membership fees that were still outstanding for 2014. So writing off membership fees, what are we talking about here? Remember, previous financial year, so if we go back to 2014, we had 13 members who had not paid their membership fees. 10 members did, however, pay, okay, which means that the balance, the 3 members, we're now writing off membership fees for 3 members. So 13, the total outstanding at the beginning of the year, minus the number that have paid during the year, gives me what I'm writing off. So my calculation for that is as follows. I'm going to take the 3 members, multiply that by 180, and that gives me the membership fees that needs to be written off. Okay, so let's do that. So 3 times 150. Oh, that's wrong. Let's correct that. It's 180, not 150, and that gives us 540. So let's write that down. 540 is what we're now writing off. So let's go back to our ledger. Okay, so in our ledger, membership fees, we're now writing off 540. So I'm going to credit membership fees by means of a general journal entry. And where am I transferring this membership fees to? An expense account called membership fees written off. Okay, quite a bit to write in that small space, but ask your teacher about abbreviating. Certain abbreviations are acceptable. So that 540, membership fees written off, remember it's an expense, so 540, and it's coming from my membership fees account at the end of the financial year by means of a general journal entry. Okay, with me. Right, next bit of information. Oh. Okay, so my last bit of information. 4 members still owe their membership fees for 2015. So for the current financial year, unfortunately, there are still 4 members who have not yet paid. Remember, the 13 was the previous financial year. So for the current financial year, we've got 4 members who still owe us 180 Rand. In other words, this is obviously my accrued income at the end of this financial year. So if we get our calculator out very quickly, so we had 4 members, so 4 times 180, and that gives us 720. So 720, go back to my accounts. Okay, so what am I going to do? I am going to credit membership fees with 720, and my contra account will be accrued income for this financial year. Okay, so 720, guys, accrued income for the current financial year, 720, and this came from my membership fees account at the end of the financial year. Okay, right, we're almost done, and I know we're running out of time, but this is important. So at the end of the financial year, remember, all income and all expenses, if you are doing a business, the books of a business, it's closed off to a profit and loss account. However, membership fees is an income and will get closed off to a final account called income and expenditure account. So how do we do this calculation? You're going to add up everything on the credit side first, because the credit side is going to give me a bigger total. So you guys can quickly add up. Transfer this total to the debit side. Whatever you got on the credit side, transfer it to the debit side, minus membership fees, or minus the entries on the debit side. So the 1,260 minus the 2,340, and that would give you the total that you now would transfer to income and expense or expenditure account, which is a final account. Now remember, guys, this amount represents the amount in terms of the income that the business, there's the word business again, that the club should receive for the financial year. Whereas bank represents the amount or the receipt what they physically received. So you'll see there'll be a big difference between the two. I should receive 17,000. I'm just using that as an example, but I received 16,200. Okay, right. Unfortunately, grade 11s, we have run out of time. So from me, Mehesh Lal, until next time, God bless and stay blessed. Okay, see you guys. Bye-bye.